So today I'm beginning a brand new series, and this one is about Prince Eugene of Savoy, whose name has popped up in some of my recommendation comments from some of you. And yeah, now I think now is finally the time to get started. Now, as of late, with my new once a week schedule, I like kind of covering series all at once. I feel like it makes videos longer and therefore much more worth the wait. And I was planning on doing Eugene's entire series all in one video, starting with the baptism of fire, siege of Buda, and all this. But then, as I was looking at his Wikipedia page, his story continues past past 1701. In fact, 1701 is like around the time the Spanish succession starts, and these earlier videos I think take place a little bit before then. So then I realized that Historymarche is still kind of doing the Spanish succession or stuff like that. Like I quickly skimmed kind of like this with some of his recent videos about Marlborough, and I noticed that Eugene appears in these videos. He's not the main focus in like his own series, but his story continues alongside Marlborough. So then I realized, oh, he's still also working on Marlborough's time, so technically this is undone. So to save myself the confusion, I've decided for Eugene, and I guess this era pretty much from 1686 through the Spanish War of Succession, I'm going to be doing this in an individual approach, one at a time. So basically for the rest of this year, all the Historymarche videos, which are like what comes out once a month, are gonna mainly just be about Eugene. This is the new commitment that I'm making, and I guess once we get through the Battle of Carpe in a few months, then I guess people will probably guide me into what to watch next or where to segue to, I'd imagine. So for this, I've decided to make the decision to do this in an individualistic approach, and so we're going to begin in what appears to be the first, according to Historymarche's playlist and the date of Eugene's story, which is the Siege of Buda. Buda? I like Buddha more, but I don't know. I guess we'll see. So, something I think a big selling point a lot of you have made when recommending me about Eugene is that, oh my gosh, he actually won. Because let's be honest here with one another, shall we? Not that I'm never honest with you guys, but let's be even more honest. The Habsburgs are kind of the biggest losers I've ever seen on this channel. And wait, before anyone gets up in arms, I mean, we've seen a lot of war videos. We've covered a lot of wars, and everyone featuring the Habsburgs, they are always losing. I literally think of this channel, all I've seen, they are the biggest, losers in the sense only that they lost, and I'm not saying that it's as a way to step on them, but spit on them or whatever you want to say. I just mean it's kind of a fact on this channel. You have to admit, for those of you who've been sticking around, every time the Habsburgs pop up, they lose all the time. The only time I can think of the Habsburgs winning was the Italian Wars. And that's it. Every other thing, Napoleonic Wars, the individual battles we've seen, the Habsburgs are always losing. And the thing is, I like the Austrian Habsburgs. They feel like the underdogs to me. I don't want anyone to think that I have a low opinion of them just because I use the word losers. I meant that more in a factual sense on this channel. But, they're always losing, and a part of me kind of wants to see them win for once. I actually they're the underdogs to me. Come on, Austria, you can pull it off. You can pull off the W. I really do want to see them win, and I guess a lot of people recommending this to me whenever his name popped up, it's like, wow, Eugene actually won. Apparently, he's a part of the Habsburgs, so I'm guessing. If not, some of you lied to me, but in the comments, but it seems like he is, and apparently he was a winner. So I'm like, it'll be very refreshing and very nice to see the Habsburgs actually get W's. Because again, like I said, we've only seen them win a war through the Italian wars, and that was it. From then on out, before and after, they've lost on all fronts. So yeah, I'm really excited just to see Austria actually get W's for once. And yeah, I don't really have much else to say other than if you want to watch the original video by Historymarche, the link will be down in the description down below. And if you enjoy my channel and you want to help me out in any way, shape, or form, feel free to please like, comment, subscribe. And if you want to go an extra step, maybe consider becoming a Patreon member. It's only for $1 a month, and you get early access and exclusive content. So yeah. Now with that said, and now without any further ado, let's do.
It is the late 17th century. Europe is divided. To the east, the powerful Ottoman Empire is at the zenith of its power. Its great vizier, Kara Mustafa, pursued an ambitious foreign policy against the Habsburg lands. The Habsburg dynasty, one of Europe's leading and most powerful monarchies, did all they could to prepare for the inevitable, upcoming, decisive war. This was a theatre where the great powers fought over and decided the course of history. Among the many heroic stories of individuals, one man emerged as a brilliant military commander. Just 22 years old at the iconic siege of Buda, the young Eugene of Savoy rapidly made a name for himself. Rejected for military service by the French king, he decided to try his luck with its main rival, the Habsburg monarchy, and with considerable success. During his lifetime, he participated in nearly every iconic battle the Habsburg monarchy fought. The war against the Ottomans was just the beginning, for he fought all over Europe, including against the French king, satisfying his personal vengeance. He stood at the forefront as history was written, and his name echoed down the centuries, for even Napoleon referred to him as one of the greatest generals of all time.
Wow, okay.
In this documentary series, Historymarche...
Yeah, being a Napoleon approved is a pretty big deal. So yeah, I'm expecting a lot of greatness from Eugene.
And House of History will shed light on the life of one of the most accomplished military commanders of his time, from his beginnings all the way to his end.
This video is sponsored by History.
In 1663, Eugene was born in Paris as the fifth son of Eugene Maurice of Savoy and his wife Olympia Mancini. When he was 10 years old, his father passed away. Due to intrigues at the French court, his gambling-addicted mother fled the kingdom to Brussels, continuing her life in exile. The Savoy children were raised by their grandmother, Maria of Bourbon, and aunt, Louise Christina of Savoy. Eugene's family was among the top European nobility. For example, his oldest brother, Louis Thomas, was a potential candidate for the Polish throne in 1674. However eccentric as he was, his family disowned him after marrying a common girl.
Oh, wow.
As the youngest of the family, it was expected
Good on him. You know, the heart wants what it wants. Good for him.
Eugene to pursue a clerical career path. However, when he turned 19, he decided he wanted a military career like his father and grandfather before him. Thanks to intrigues at the French court and King Louis XIV's personal interference, he could not find placement in the French army. In his autobiography, Eugene reflected on Louis preventing him from pursuing a future in France. There is not a Huguenot expelled by the revocation of the Edict of Nantes who hated Louis XIV more than I did. Therefore, when Louvois heard of my departure, saying, "So much the better, he will never return into this country again," I swore never to enter it but with arms in my hands. I have kept my word.
Dang. He's out. He basically has something to prove now, right? All right. you know, which is kind of hilarious because again, we have yet to see, but from all the hype of Eugene that I've already heard and that we've already established in the first few minutes of this series, it seems like this might have been the one of the biggest L's that the King of France could have made in getting rid of potentially a great military prospect for whatever his motives were. So this came back to bite him hard.
Eugene traveled to Frankfurt.
But yeah, also going over to the Habsburgs Austrian and becoming their like champion, like man, big L for France right now for this decision, it seems. And yeah, definitely Eugene has something to prove.
It so happened that Europe stood at the brink of a major war against the Ottoman Empire. In Frankfurt, he learned of the Ottomans laying siege to Vienna. He also learned of his brother entering imperial service to fight the Ottomans, and his death soon after. This did not deter the young man. In August, he arrived at Emperor Leopold's quarters at Passau to offer his services to the Habsburg monarchy. His first appointment was as the bodyguard of Charles of Lorraine, commander of the imperial army. After the 1683 siege of Vienna, lasting for 2 months, by September the 12th, the Christian coalition emerged victorious over the Ottomans. Eugene distinguished himself during the siege and Battle of Vienna. The emperor rewarded him with command over the Kufstein Dragoon Regiment and several commendations. Eugene was poised for a lightning campaign toward great heights at 20 years old.
Wow.
Geopolitical developments rapidly followed each other up. The Ottoman failure of the Second Siege of Vienna marked the start of the Great Turkish War. The victors established the Holy League in March 1684. Its members, the Habsburg monarchy, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and the Republic of Venice, agreed to drive the Ottomans from Europe entirely. That same year, they led an assault against Buda, a city that had been under Ottoman rule for 145 years. The siege ended in failure, and after nearly 4 months, the Holy League had to withdraw, suffering heavy losses. But Eugene continued his rise through the ranks. By 1685, he was promoted to Major General, with many surviving accounts of his superiors remarking the young man was poised for great things. In 1686, the Holy League decided to try and relieve Buda once more. They mustered up a much larger multinational army. Up to 100,000 men from all over Europe traveled to the Habsburg lands to relieve the city from the Ottoman yoke. The Holy League's commanders were told the objective was not just to relieve Buda, but the ruin of the Ottoman Empire. On June 12th, long columns departed on both banks of the Danube. When they approached Buda 4 days later, engineers built bridges and soldiers dug trenches around the city to cut it off from Ottoman lines entirely. Meanwhile, the Ottomans prepared for the impending siege their scouts warned them of inside Buda. Their commander, Abdi Pasha, the Albanian, gave a speech to all his troops, telling them the Sultan instructed them to defend Buda to the last drop of their blood. The Ottoman garrison numbered some 13,000 men, including Janissaries, Sipahis, and 2,000 inhabitants. Buda's central feature was, without a doubt, Buda Castle, strategically built on a rocky outcrop. Around the castle was the higher town. Below that, the lower town, built on the banks between the river and the castle's slope, protected the gates and citadel's ports. The lower town's walls were still battered from the siege 2 years before, though the Ottomans had made many repairs. Upon their arrival, the Allied army seized the empty pest across the Danube and dug their trenches. The Ottomans' artillery occasionally fired at them. However, the occasional skirmishes with Sipahis storming from the city's gates failed to cause a real dent in the Holy League's process. On June 21st, the Allied batteries launched their first volleys against the lower town. The Ottomans failed to return fire, and after 2 days of the assault, the first breaches emerged. On June 24th, the Bavarians launched the first assault through the breach. They charged towards the city, leapt through the wall, and faced surprisingly little resistance. Sure, minor skirmishes followed, but the Bavarians soon discovered that most of the Ottoman garrison fortified themselves in the city above.
Oh, okay.
Seizing the lower city was an early and, frankly, an easy victory. Moreover, the Holy League received news of their irregulars capturing a boat with the Pasha's family down the river towards Belgrade.
Oh, wow.
Things were...
Okay, things are looking up, but, like, there's always an if to this, right? Like, I don't know, I feel like having the Pasha's family could be a pretty good bargaining chip. I mean, you know, but then again, maybe the Pasha might prove to be too loyal to the cause. He'd be like, oh, well, you know, but I feel like that's still pretty significant, you know, to at least try to use, right? Like, hey, we got your family, you know.
Looking good. Having secured the lower town, the offensive focused on Buda Castle, the fortified high town. Using Pest as a springboard, the Alliance seized St. Gelert's Hill. Their heavy artillery was ideal for bombarding the Ottoman positions accurately. The Ottomans were surrounded, and they felt it from every angle. But the Ottomans were tenacious. Throughout the siege, they followed a rather clear pattern. Near daily, the Holy League focused on different areas to concentrate their attacks. The Ottomans sent their vanguard to fight in the front lines, while others put up palisades behind them. Once these were up, the front line disengaged, and the attackers were left far in advance, subject to accurate fire. Often, upon the Allied retreat, Janissaries launched a lightning charge against their trenches. Savage, brutal, close combat followed, rarely resulting in the Allies gaining the upper hand. Allied casualties mounted without any real progress. Even personal accounts described the Ottoman steadfastness. We could not force the palisaded retrenchment of the besieged behind the breach, and our chief officers were all either wounded or killed by the continued firing of the enemy. It was thought convenient for our assailants to retreat, though they had fought like lions. Even the compact, fast-firing Turkish bow proved a better weapon than the musket.
Yeah, the Ottomans seem to be adopting like a very, like, still defensive, but also yet aggressive strategy. I guess like a very defensive aggression that they seem to be implementing. It's working well, because I was looking at the situation, I'm like, dude, they are surrounded, you know, like the writing's on the wall so much that things seem so bad for the Ottomans. Though, again, they still are incredibly powerful at this point, and it's nice to see that, you know, despite how awful the situation looks for them, that they're still kind of going down, they're not going down without a fight, you know?
Weeks of this pattern followed. During one of the skirmishes, Eugene was shot by a Turkish arrow through his hand.
Ooh.
Slowly, an Allied strategy crystallized. Their attacks concentrated against the city gate, convinced this was the crucial point where they could achieve victory. The Alliance got lucky a few times. A mortar shell blew up a powder magazine 1 month after the siege commenced. The blast killed as many as 1,000 defenders.
Oh,
The Duke
what a disaster. Holy crap.
hoped this was a watershed moment and sent an emissary with a summons to surrender. But Abdi Pasha's response was for the Duke to come wrested from his hands. There seemed no end in sight. When the pattern of battle repeated itself in July, the Alliance was caught off guard in their trenches. They suffered over 3,000 casualties.
Ooh.
A significant...
Oh my gosh, holy crap. One sortie killed 3,000. Oh my gosh, that's insane. Oh yeah, the Ottomans, they're definitely not going out without a fight. I kind of respect the dog in them.
blow for the Allies. But whereas the Alliance suffered heavily, the Ottomans were hard-pressed as well. When rumors reached the Duke of dissent among the Ottoman lines, he sent an emissary for surrender. The emissary returned with an answer hinting at the Pasha trying to find an honorable way out of the impasse. However, the Pasha was in no position to surrender. Doing so against the Grand Vizier's orders would cost him his life.
Yeah, this dude, yeah, I kind of figured, right? I think we've seen this a few times where some Ottoman leaders who failed or usually get executed, so that kind of makes sense. He's like, listen, I'm gonna die, like, for sure if I give up, so literally his life is on the line. I could see why now he's like, yeah.
So they reached no solution, and the artillery bombardment and occasional charges continued. On August 13th, the Duke received news from his scouts. An Ottoman army numbering some 40,000 troops marched towards Buda. Their Tatar cavalry was already harassing the alliance's supply lines. In response, the Duke collected all of his cavalry, among which Eugene's dragoons and a sizable portion of his infantry, and embarked on a march south to meet the main Ottoman army. Not many details survive of the subsequent battle, except that the Hungarian Hussar vanguard ran into the Ottoman main army. They feigned a retreat, allowing the remainder of their cavalry to flank the Ottomans. Surviving witness statements reveal they were massacred like wild beasts that fell into the hunter's net. The fighting continued all day. By nightfall, 3,000 Ottomans lay dead on the battlefield, and the remainder of the army was in full retreat.
You know, part of me was wondering about the relief that the Ottomans would receive. It came, but it did not actually succeed in getting sorry, it did not actually receive. Sorry, I just got some weird message here. Okay, so it did not succeed thanks to the efforts of Charles and Eugene, who is still kind of on the rise here. Okay, so Buda's on its own basically now, like with no hope of relief. Like now it becomes an attrition game once again, right? Oh snap.
When the Duke returned to the trenches, he ordered his army to display the colours and standards from the slain Ottomans. He hoped this would unnerve the defenders enough to reach the siege's end. But no such thing happened. Quite the contrary, the Ottomans resisted with more determination. On the outskirts of the trenches, Allied encampments were harassed by loosely organised Ottoman skirmishers. Though not numerous enough to impact the outcome of the siege, they certainly contributed to the bloodshed. Again, this continued for weeks. Finally, on August 30th, 5 infantry regiments and 25 cavalry squadrons arrived to reinforce the Allies. The following day, the Duke and his generals agreed there wasn't enough progress, and they were in an ideal position to strike decisively. On the morning of September the 2nd, the Ottomans saw a lot of movement in the Allied camp. Rumours reached them the day before of the Allied army marching south against the Grand Vizier's army. A small siege party would be left to keep them in check. It appeared the defenders would finally enjoy some breathing room. The Allied army took up positions in 3 columns, seemingly ready to leave Buda behind. But then horns sounded, and battle cries emerged from the Allied lines.
Deception. Alright, very, very clever. They're very cunning. I like to see that.
The soldiers suddenly turned around. As the enormous Allied army stormed the city's gate, the Allied artillery opened fire. Brutal fighting broke out as the 3 assault columns reached the Ottomans defending the front lines. Their numerical superiority and the weariness of the defenders allowed them to swiftly overrun the initial lines. Combat continued, and slowly but surely the Allies pushed up the city's hill. Several defenders surrendered, but to no avail. It was an incredible slaughter. The Duke and Elector of Bavaria sent direct orders for the soldiers not to massacre any surrendering prisoners. On the walls of the higher town, the Pasha met his end. Eyewitness accounts state he died bravely upon the breach, where he defended himself valiantly with his scimitar in his hand, scorning to retreat or demand quarter. In total, no more than 2,000 of the 13,000 defenders survived. The Allied victory was a significant...
Dang, holy crap. I have to give it to the Pasha, bro. That guy, he looks old. like a tough old dude. Like, honestly, he went out like a true G, bro.
Military triumph for the Christians after 145 years of Ottoman rule.
It's true. I think we're starting to finally see the shift, because obviously we've covered the early rise of the Ottomans mainly with kings and generals, and like, you know, the Ottomans especially the early rise of the Ottomans, I would say, like, under the first 10 sultans, from like, you know, Osman all the way to like the Magnificent, was like, you know, the Ottomans as a, like, still, when they were just completely unstoppable as a force, just defeating and beating literally everyone, and like all of Europe was floundering on them. But there's always that shift with the Ottomans. There's the early rise of the Ottomans, where they're literally the bane of Europe and just no one can, they're just beating everyone. And then there's the second half of the Ottomans, where Europe finally like closes that gap, and then the Ottomans suffer at the hands of Europe. I feel like this is kind of like a pretty big, significant, this might be a contribution to, or the introduction to the second half, where the Ottomans start to fall behind as Europe becomes even more and more militarily powerful, you know? And, again, yeah, you're definitely seeing, not to take away from the Ottomans at this point, they're still very strong, but, you know, you definitely see it's not like before, right? Like, Europe is actually closing the gap that, and actually fighting back even harder. Especially with stuff like the Holy League and stuff, like, definitely Europe locks in and then eventually surpasses the Ottomans. And eventually Ottomans would just become literally the sick man of Europe, so, you know. It's always a little tragic seeing the Ottomans fall from greatness into just, like, you know, like, literally what would they become later.
Prince Eugene played a minor role during this epic siege, but it was just the beginning of his military career. The siege of Buda and subsequent military campaigns exemplify the tumultuous time that marked Eugene's legendary career. If you've made it this far into the video, amazing people, early access to...
He usually has messages, I guess not for this one. Alright, so pretty good beginning. The dude's just barely making his marks. So I'm really looking forward, because next time we'll definitely be getting into, I guess, the second battle of Mohacs. So yeah, I'm gonna end it right here, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, everyone.